The first thing you should know about time travel is that it smells. Nobody tells you that part. No sci-fi movie ever mentions the distinct odor of burning ozone mixed with that weird smell when you microwave fish, which, coincidentally, is exactly what Dr. Harmon had for lunch the day everything went sideways. I'm Dr. Ellie Novak, and until approximately 4 hours ago, or 39 years in the future, depending on your perspective, I was lead physicist at Kronos Labs. Now I'm just a woman in a lab coat with singed eyebrows standing in a mall food court circa 1985, trying not to have a complete mental breakdown next to the orange Julius stand. "Ma'am, are you gonna order something or just stare at the menu all day?" The teenager behind the counter had the audacity to snap his gum at me. His name tag read Todd. "Listen, Todd. I've just accidentally catapulted myself 4 decades into the past after the quantum stabilizers on my chronometric displacement device overloaded. So forgive me if I need a moment to decide between a strawberry or pineapple smoothie." Todd blinked twice. "We're having a 2-for-1 special." I sighed. Perfect. Because finding myself stranded in the Reagan era definitely calls for excess sugar. After securing my liquid consolation prizes, I found a seat and tried to assess my situation rationally. The experiment had gone perfectly until the final phase when the temporal field collapsed. Instead of creating a stable viewing window into the past as intended, the whole rig imploded, and I got sucked in like the last French fry into a vacuum cleaner. My emergency return beacon was fried. My specialized phone, useless. And my knowledge of 1985 was limited to what I'd gathered from watching The Breakfast Club and my parents' embarrassing stories. "You're holding that cup like it might explode," said a voice from behind me. I turned to find a man in his 30s wearing what had to be the world's most aggressive attempt at blending into the 1980s, acid-washed jeans, a neon windbreaker, and a t-shirt that read "Where's the beef?" "The only thing explosive here is your fashion sense," I replied. He sat down uninvited. "Your lab coat isn't exactly period-appropriate either, Dr. Novak." "And you are?" "Vincent Reed. Class of 2097, Temporal Engineering Institute." He extended his hand. "Stuck here for the past 8 months. And judging by your expression, you're fresh off the temporal boat." I nearly choked on my smoothie. 2097? You're from even further in the future? Guilty as charged. Though future is relative when you're stuck in the past. Vincent leaned forward. "Let me guess, experiment gone wrong? Miscalculated coordinates? Or the classic equipment malfunction?" "Equipment malfunction, but something feels off. The failsafe should have prevented a complete collapse." I narrowed my eyes. "Wait, how did you know I was a time traveler? Aside from the lab coat and the look of existential dread?" "The residual tachyon radiation. You're practically glowing with it." He pulled out what looked like a vintage Walkman but with far too many buttons. "My detector picked you up the moment you arrived." "You built a tachyon detector from 1980s components?" "When you've been stranded as long as I have, you get creative." Vincent's expression darkened. "Also, I've been tracking unusual temporal signatures for months. Someone else is here, Novak. Someone who doesn't want us getting back." "That's absurd. Time travel has only been theoretically possible for about 3 years in your time, I'm guessing? Around 2061? I nodded reluctantly. "In my time, we've mastered it. Sort of. Enough to know that temporal manipulation leaves traces." He showed me his modified Walkman screen displaying 3 distinct energy signatures. "That's you, that's me, and that," he pointed to a third, pulsing erratically, "is our mystery guest. So you think someone deliberately sabotaged my experiment? And yours?" "I think someone doesn't want certain people returning to their proper times. The question is why." Over the next few hours, Vincent brought me to his hideout, a converted storage unit behind an abandoned Blockbuster Video. The walls were covered in equations, newspaper clippings, and hand-drawn timelines. It was either the work of a genius or a complete lunatic. Possibly both. I've tracked our mystery traveler's movements, Vincent explained, pointing to a map dotted with pins. They've been here longer than either of us, at least 2 years, and they're methodical. About what? I asked, examining his notes. That's the frustrating part. I don't know their endgame, but they've been collecting technology. Primitive by our standards, but specific components. Microprocessors, rare earth magnets, uranium glass. Uranium glass? The decorative kind from the 30s? The very same. Contains just enough trace uranium to detect with the right equipment. I was about to question this further when Vincent's detector began beeping frantically. They're close, he whispered, killing the lights. Very close. We peered through the blinds to see a figure in a hooded jacket examining something at the edge of the property. They placed what looked like a small metal disc on the ground before disappearing around the corner. Wait here, Vincent said, grabbing his detector. No way, I protested, following him out the back door. We circled around to where the figure had been, finding the small disc glowing faintly. Vincent carefully picked it up with a handkerchief. It's a temporal marker, he said, examining it under his modified flashlight. Advanced design. It's not just marking this location, it's marking us. Like a tracking device? More like a temporal breadcrumb. Someone wants to make sure we stay on a specific path. Vincent's eyes widened as he turned the disc over. There's an inscription. I leaned closer, and my blood went cold. Etched into the metal in my own handwriting was a message. Stop looking. Some doors should stay closed. DN. Asterisk. DN? Vincent questioned. My hands trembled slightly. Those are my initials backward. Diana was my middle name. But I never use it. Well, someone does, Vincent said grimly. And they know exactly who you are. Morning in 1985 came with the realization that shoulder pads were everywhere and my existential crisis wasn't just a bad dream induced by expired takeout. The temporal marker Vincent and I found had kept me awake all night. Someone with my handwriting, possibly some future or alternate version of myself, was deliberately interfering with time travel experiments. You look like you wrestled a DeLorean and lost, Vincent commented, handing me a cup of what passed for coffee in this decade. Thanks. Nothing like a little appearance critique from a man wearing parachute pants. Hey, I'm blending in. Something you might want to try before we head out. He tossed me a shopping bag. The lab coat screams I'm from the future and extremely disoriented. The bag contained jeans, a purple sweater, and a denim jacket with enough patches to qualify as a quilt. You've got to be kidding me. Fashion is the least of our problems. My detector picked up another temporal signature overnight. 3 blocks from here. After changing into my costume for I Love the 80s, the tragic years, we headed to a neighborhood park where Vincent's detector led us. The signal brought us to a teenager sitting cross-legged under a tree, furiously scribbling in a notebook. That can't be right, Vincent muttered, checking his device. Unless. The kid looked up, probably 16, with wild curly hair and glasses too big for his face. Took you long enough. I've been waiting for 2 time travelers to show up for weeks. Vincent and I exchanged glances. Don't look so shocked, the kid continued. I'm Dash. Not a time traveler, just extremely observant. And you two stick out like calculators at a sundial convention. We're just, I began. Save it, lab coat. You appeared out of nowhere yesterday looking like you'd been electrocuted, and this guy's been hanging around for months trying desperately to understand MTV. You're either time travelers or the world's worst undercover cops. I sighed. What do you want, Dash? To help. I've been tracking weird occurrences around town. Electronics going missing from the high school, power surges, and a strange woman who keeps showing up at scientific demonstrations asking questions about quantum mechanics. Strange woman? Vincent perked up. Dash flipped through his notebook. Late 40s, gray streak in her hair, always wears a blue coat, and has a weird scar on her right hand that looks like a chemical burn in the shape of a crescent moon," I finished, involuntarily touching my own right hand where I'd recently noticed a small rash developing in that exact pattern. "That's her. She calls herself Dr. Diana North." Diana North. DN. My middle name and a play on Novak. It was me, or would be me, trying to manipulate the timeline. Vincent looked at me knowingly. "Where can we find her, Dash?" "She rents the old observatory outside town. Very private, lots of security. I've tried getting close, but she's got the place locked down tighter than NASA." With Dash's reluctant help, bribed with promises of future technology secrets, we formulated a plan to infiltrate the observatory. By nightfall, we were crouched in the woods surrounding the property. "This is insane," I whispered. "We're stalking my future self." "Your future self who's potentially destroying the fabric of space-time," Vincent reminded me. No pressure. Getting in was surprisingly easy, almost too easy. The security system deactivated as we approached, and the side door opened with a soft click. "She's expecting us," Vincent said grimly. Inside, the observatory had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory. Vintage computer equipment merged with futuristic components in ways that shouldn't have been possible with 1985 technology. At the center stood a woman with her back to us, working at a console. "I was wondering when you'd show up, Ellie," she said without turning around. "You're actually late. I calculated your arrival for yesterday morning." "Traffic was terrible," I replied automatically. 39 years worth." She turned, and I found myself staring at my own face, aged by about 20 years. Same eyes, same annoyed expression when confronted with inconveniences. But harder somehow, with lines of grief I hadn't earned yet. "Vincent Reed," she nodded to my companion. "Still favoring garish clothing, I see. Some things never change." "Why are you doing this?" I demanded. "You sabotaged my experiment." "And his." "I didn't sabotage anything," Diana, my future self, corrected. "I redirected you." "Both of you." "There's a difference." "Semantics don't matter when you're stranded decades from home," Vincent snapped. "Home," Diana laughed bitterly. "You don't have a home to go back to, Vincent. Neither of you do. Not anymore." She pressed a button, and the observatory dome opened, revealing a projection system that illuminated the ceiling with images, news reports, scientific data, environmental catastrophes. 3 years after your experiment, Ellie, Chronos Labs perfects true bidirectional time travel. 6 months after that, they send back corporate spies to steal technological innovations and patent them early. The timeline fractures. Paradoxes multiply. The images shifted to scenes of devastation. By 2070, temporal warfare breaks out. By 2090, reality itself begins to unravel. By 2099, 2 years after young Vincent here makes his jump, the universe simply stops. Vincent paled. "That's impossible." "Is it? You're the temporal engineer. You know the math better than anyone." "Too many paradoxes, too many changes, the timeline can't sustain the contradictions." Diana turned to me. "And it all starts with us, Ellie. With our breakthrough. So you're just going to trap us here? Let us live out our lives in the wrong decade? I'm giving you a chance to help me prevent the collapse. We can't go back, the damage is already done. But we can send a message forward." Diana explained her plan. Using the observatory's radio telescope, modified with our combined knowledge, we could send a precise quantum-encrypted warning to our own time, programmed to decode only for specific recipients who could prevent the catastrophe. "It won't restore our timeline," Diana admitted. "But it will create a branch where humanity survives." "And us?" Vincent asked. "We stay here. Living witnesses to a future that must never happen." After hours of debate and examination of Diana's evidence, we reluctantly agreed to help. Over the next 3 days, with Dash running interference with the locals, He was surprisingly resourceful for a teenager with a Rubik's Cube addiction. We built our temporal beacon. Ready? Diana asked as our creation hummed to life. I looked at Vincent, who nodded solemnly. For what it's worth, Diana said softly, I'm sorry it came to this. I placed my hand on the activation panel beside hers, identical hands, separated by decades of experience. Let's save the world, then figure out how to live in it. The beacon fired, a beam of invisible data shooting toward a precise point in space where, years from now, a receiver would be waiting. Then everything went white. I awoke to the sounds of birds and the smell of coffee. Opening my eyes, I found myself in a modern apartment, my apartment, but subtly different. The furniture arrangement, the color of the walls, all slightly off. Morning, sunshine, called a familiar voice. Vincent stepped into view, older now, gray streaking his temples. Welcome to 2062. Version 2.0. We're home? I sat up, disoriented. Sort of. Diana's plan worked, with a twist. The message was received, the catastrophe averted. But instead of creating a branch timeline, it folded back on itself. We've been here for 20 years, living our lives in the new timeline. But I don't remember. You wouldn't. Temporal realignment. Your consciousness from this timeline is merging with your displaced self. Give it time. Vincent smiled. Meanwhile, you might want to check your hand. I looked down at my right hand, where a familiar crescent-shaped scar was beginning to fade. Diana? I asked. Gone. Or rather, never became. You took a different path. From the bookshelf, he retrieved a journal and handed it to me. Inside, in my handwriting, temporal displacement theory, why time travel should remain theoretical. Congratulations, Dr. Novak. You just became the world's leading expert on why time travel is a terrible idea. I laughed despite myself. All that work to get back, only to argue against ever leaving. Ironic, isn't it? But effective. Vincent gestured to the window, where a normal, unapocalyptic city thrived. Sometimes the best adventures are the ones that never happen. As my memories slowly aligned and the headache subsided, one question remained. What happened to Dash? Vincent grinned, pointing to a framed magazine cover on the wall. Dr. Dashiell Cooper, Nobel Prize winner for quantum communication theory. Of course, I smiled. Some things are simply meant to be. On my desk sat a small metal disc, the temporal marker, now serving as a paperweight. The inscription had changed. Some doors should stay closed. Others lead exactly where you need to go. Asterisk.